play this quick 30 seconds here.
Assuming your Office 365 data is automatically backed up can feel a lot like this.
And once again, ladies and gentlemen,
Backing up Office 365 data with Veeam feels like this. So back it up with Veeam.
All right. Thank you for holding off there, and we can hand it over to Virgil. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Yeah, so hopefully everybody knows you're going to be talking about Microsoft Search today. Let me get there where it actually works. A few slides to start off. You've probably seen these a few times if you've been attending all day, but join M365 Chicago in supporting the great cause. And make sure to thank all the sponsors and visit them, because without them, these type of events would not be possible. So a little bit about me. My name is Virgil Carroll. I'm the owner and principal architect of HighMonkey in the Twin Cities, Minnesota. I actually originally hail from the state of Alaska. I've been in business for over 23 years now, so for more than a while. I've been working with websites since 1998, and I've been working with SharePoint in particular, but doing a lot of workplace type work since 2001. Definitely, if you've ever heard me speak before, I'm a huge user experience aficionado, so everything that I'm going to talk to also kind of talks about how this is going to affect the end user experience. And probably one of the topics that I'm most passionate about around that is the topic that gets most neglected in the world, which is search. So a little bit about what we're going to do today. We're going to talk a little bit about what this is and kind of a little bit about Microsoft Search and how it works and all the different pieces there. We're going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and what that really means in the Microsoft Search environment right now, some of the things that are coming, and then we're going to get into some demo stuff where I'm just going to kind of walk through how to configure a few things that I think are interesting along this topic. So if you've ever attended any of my sessions before, I start every session with this because I think this is so important from the user experience side, but even more important from the user experience and search side of things. And that is, how do people ask, or how does search work? User asks a question, some kind of magic happens, and user gets an answer. And the reason I bring this up and the challenge that it really brings is this is kind of where people baseline at, is they think that they should just be able to search on anything, and when they search on anything, anything should show up, and it should be super easy to see everything and never have any problems with that and everything around that. And so we obviously have a lot of concerns around that when we start talking about searching and cataloging and understanding everything in a corporate environment versus something that is out there in the public web, where you have companies like Microsoft and Google and them who are working constantly to upgrade their search technologies. So what is Microsoft Search? Well, Microsoft Search is really an ecosystem inside of itself. Otherwise, I've been throughout the years very much a proponent of search in the Microsoft ecosystem, and I've also been an opponent of search in the Microsoft ecosystem. Most of the time, the opponent side has been because a lot of things just do not ever end up working the way that we all think they should, and people tend to be wholly dissatisfied. And you know, you look at things like SharePoint 2013 and kind of the evolution of fast search and that, and everything kind of came through and really kind of caused a lot of things. But what I mean by search as an ecosystem is that it's really made up of a lot of parts, and I'm going to kind of go more into that there. But overall, from a content source, you're talking about having a single search solution that truly provides content search for all the content inside your 365 environment. And as a matter of fact, so you know, you're talking Teams, you're talking SharePoint content, email, Yammer, groups, OneDrive, Dynamics, all these different things. Well, now what is really rolling out right now is everything else. So this world that we're going to talk a little bit about connectors and being able to connect external data sources and some of that. And that really all comes into Microsoft Search. And so one of the things I say when you try to understand it is Microsoft Search is not a SharePoint search. It's not a Outlook search. It's not a OneDrive search. Microsoft Search is its own thing, and really everything else is a content source. So it really sits outside the experience of just a particular 365 app and really kind of wraps everything together into one cohesive package. Behind the scenes, it's made up of a lot of parts. First and foremost, the most powerful decision Microsoft made was when they decided to switch over to Microsoft Search from SharePoint Search, which was the fast search technology, is they started to use the Bing search technology as the underpinning of the system. And that really brought a lot of experience, a lot of understanding from the public search side of things and how that really worked. And then it's really mixed in a lot of other things like Lewis AI, which is their natural language understanding, and we'll talk a little bit more about Turing LNG, which is how they create language models so that they can understand how language relates to one another. Because one thing you don't really think about is it's not only what you say, it's how you say it. And you have to actually build something to understand those models about the way people talk and communicate and write and everything else like that. And there are actually pieces that come from FAST, the classic search experience, that really kind of help out with the process. So the big part about this is artificial intelligence. Well, what do we really mean? Well, artificial intelligence is getting to be one of those phrases that really means a lot of things to a lot of people and nothing to anybody. And what I mean by that is it's kind of getting to be a phrase that's thrown out there from everything from your cell phone to your computer to your TV to your oven to everything else. Everything's just got some kind of AI built into it. Well, AI really breaks down to some very particular components like machine learning. How can the machine learn about stuff the same way the human mind can? Or natural language processors, how can it understand things by actually walking through and understanding natural language? There's all these different pieces that really go into that. But from a search perspective, from what we're trying to do, there really is a lot that AI can bring to the table that is not going to be perfect. I want to make sure that you understand this is not going to be a perfect solution in all situations, but what it's going to do is it's going to really help. So how can it help? Well, it can learn from all you've forgotten. Otherwise, there is information inside your organization that you don't even remember existed there. And when you start talking about a machine that's crawling all this information, it's actually learning and understanding that information where no human has maybe opened that particular document or spreadsheet or whatever it is for years and years and years. There's actually something that's gleaming some of that information. So there's a potential that maybe we might start getting back some of that knowledge from before, not doing so much duplication, because it'll be easier to understand where that information is. It'll help you search smarter. I mean, definitely if you look at the evolution of public search engines and kind of how that's all worked, one of the most valuable things that public search engines have really brought to the table is predictive typing. So as you type, or did you mean, the things where it kind of anticipates based off the patterns of you, based off the patterns of everybody else in the world, and helps you understand better what you're trying to look for. And that's typically one of the biggest challenges we have in the world of search, is that people aren't sure what they're looking for. And so having the search actually kind of understand it based off patterns and experience in that in your content really makes a lot of sense. Fill in some of the gaps. So there's going to be a lot of things there about things that we know are there, but then we don't know are there. It's going to enhance your experience, or it's going to replace some experiences. There's going to be some things that it's going to be able to do better than what we could do before. There's others that it's really going to enhance that process. But really what I think to me is one of the most important things that AI really is going to bring to the equations in all the years that I've been doing search is a lot of times we work with a lot of customers in what we call just-in-time information. Otherwise, there are certain pieces of information that you need to know as you're doing a particular activity. And you could have one piece of information that you need to know this part of it during this phase of a task and this part of it during this phase of a task. And having artificial intelligence that can start to learn those patterns and understand those things and actually understand that we're actually hitting a spot where it can start to predict why we need something, or maybe who we need to find, or that kind of stuff, could be very powerful. Of course, on the other side, it could also be a very bad idea. So what are some of the things that Microsoft Search in particular are bringing to this? Well, first and foremost, and probably one of the most powerful things is bringing in spelling suggestions. We as people on this earth are atrocious spellers. You know, it's funny, as much long as I've been doing the web side of the world, people, you know, I sit down with stakeholders and you talk to them, and the first thing I say is, well, you know, all these young people, they're very used to using their devices, so they're really good at technology. And I'm like, actually, no, they're not. They're very good at being able to press really big buttons and do things like that. But overall, when it comes to things like spelling words correctly or anything like that, they don't do it anymore. So we have to build technology that understands all those nuances in there and can still provide the right thing. The second thing, and this kind of goes to the push side of things, being able to do acronyms. Microsoft has a stat that about 2 to 3% of all searches inside a corporate environment are somebody searching on an acronym. So this is very powerful. One area that I think this is very powerful is when you start talking about new employee onboarding and what that could mean to that from that side, having a good acronym library so that people can understand. And one of the challenges we have around things like acronyms and that kind of stuff is sometimes the same acronym is used in one area and it's used in another area for a completely different reason. But you have this ability to be able to capture that information, provide that information to your end users, so when they're searching on it, they'll actually get something very meaningful up front. You know, you have also bookmarks, question and answers, and locations, and this really is kind of this whole process of push. Otherwise, search is a kind of what we consider a pull type technology. Otherwise, I send out a query and it pulls back information that it thinks is relevant to it. The push side of that is I'm creating something like a bookmark that when somebody searches that, instead of me pulling back results from search, I'm pushing that information onto the screen saying, here, this bookmark might be something that you need from that. But probably one of the most interesting ones is what we call actionable experiences. So I'm not going to go extremely deep in this, but I want to bring it in because it's something that's brand new that is going to be rolling out here as part of kind of Microsoft's especially effort to bring in external data, so data outside of 365. But part of the way things are displayed, and I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but you can see like here on the search screen, this is what's called an adaptive card. And this is kind of a strategy that they've used that has gotten a little bit more universal about how you display results and that. The advantage of an adaptive card is that you can kind of have a consistent layout across multiple devices, types, programs, and that kind of stuff. But part of that is that you have what's called an actionable set in there. And so Microsoft's kind of done that already, that in a bookmark or a Q&A, you can actually attach that to like a Power App. So you could actually load up a Power App from a bookmark. So let's say that I was doing like, I need to apply for time off, and it had the PTO Power App attached to it. But this could even go one step further, where you could start using it to filter results based off of a single result. You could use it to maybe do some quick activity, some quick task there. It's a very interesting thing. So as you're kind of getting into this, what can you do to kind of prepare for it? Is you can create these lists, you can figure out what your acronyms are, You can figure out what your bookmarks, your question and answers, your locations, and all those people there, and who your subject matter experts are, and really kind of go down that path of figuring out exactly what here is needed to put into these places. The search technology does do a certain amount of that for you, but overall, you're still going to benefit from doing this yourself. Otherwise, if people are searching on things a lot, it's actually going to try to discover that information and try to suggest an acronym or suggest a bookmark to you as an administrator that you could then deploy out to your organization. Probably one of the biggest things that the Bing experience and Lewis brought in was the ability to do natural language processing. And natural language processing, really, we've all gotten in such a habit, instead of doing very specific searches, to asking more of a question. So you think of question-based searches, and Microsoft Search can very much handle a question-based search in those areas, and from that, and it understands all the semantical relationships of everything that goes together, and how to process that language, and how to extract that information, and really kind of learn from what you're doing, and provide better results. And that in and of itself is a really huge win from that side. The other thing that's coming into here, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this from the ramifications of what it is when I get to the demo, but you have SharePoint Syntax Viva Topics, which fundamentally are the same thing. It's just a different naming for it. One's for Teams, one's for SharePoint. But overall, what this is really giving you topical answers. And I've been playing around with this for probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, kind of just doing some different things with it. And we can now get these in the search results that it can kind of go out and discover what it thinks is good topics for you to share. And the topical piece is really not just about the topic and information about it. It's about the content that's related to that topic. It's about the people that could be considered experts of that topic. And really, you be able to build this kind of topical piece that can really allow you to push information to people about things that they need to know, and help them connect better with information and other people in their organization. So you have content classification, where you can do that kind of stuff. But there is a cost to this. This is not part of any of the e-licenses. This is something additional right now that you need to purchase. For most organizations, it's going to be anywhere around $1 to $5 a month. And then we have connectors. So connectors is something that officially rolled out just a couple months ago. I had been beta testing this for Microsoft for about the last year or so, especially working with their connector framework and how it installs on a local machine to crawl information from that machine. But it's actually very sophisticated. If anybody ever dealt with the ability to crawl external content from SharePoint with Classic Search, you knew that that was a very painful experience. This actually makes it much simpler. Eventually, it's going to be a lot more powerful as far as what we can do with it. But overall, we have these connectors that we can connect into file shares and SQL databases and enterprise websites. And I'm sure Microsoft may not deploy many more connectors themselves, but there's getting to be a very large third-party connector system that you can use to be able to connect out there and bring other data into your search experience, so then you can actually search upon that content as well. I will tell you that anybody that's curious, and I don't know really the technical level of anybody on the call right now, but the connector, the thing that you have to install on your servers is actually very lightweight and very simple to configure comparatively to other things. One of the things that they've just rolled out, or and I just enabled it, but it hadn't shown up in my tenant yet because I just enabled it this morning, is what's called result cluster. So one of the things is when you were up until now, when you were bringing in external content, you would just see it as a separate vertical, and I'll show you what I mean when I get to the demo part. And now you can actually bring those results into the all vertical, so otherwise tie it in with all the rest of the search results, so that it can all be part of one big search results. Eventually, you're going to be able to do more segmentation of that and kind of build your own customized results and that kind of stuff. But right now, we're kind of limited only to do that in very particular scenarios in Microsoft Search. And then the other thing that you're going to be able to use is you can connect into these external services, and it'll actually feed your user profile system and allow you to be able to actually do queries through Microsoft Search based off user profile variables and that kind of stuff. I do want to mention that if you do not have E5 licensing, there is a cost. The cost of having connectors is not the connector, it's the number of items indexed. Like for in my tenant, it's $1,000 a month for that, and I can crawl up to 1 million items. So I have not purchased that because I do not need to crawl anywhere even near that. So I have just left it to my 500 items that I can crawl external for my testing purposes. So what can you do to be able to do this? Figure out where your data sources are, what external data you might want to bring into it, and what that might look like, and determine, kind of what your indexing needs. If you're going to go over 1 million items, you're most likely an organization that's under some type of enterprise agreement with Microsoft, and you probably already have some of your own specific licensing. So I don't want you to panic about that, but for most, that base license is going to be what you need if you don't already have your users at E5 licensing. There's going to be a lot happening around multimedia, some of that's rolled already. They rolled out the auto transcription services of audio and video in OneDrive and SharePoint about a year ago, and then they brought it back during the pandemic because they took it out during the pandemic because what was happening was it was putting too much burden on 365 as they were adjusting to all these new people being in part of it. But it is back in place, and it can do full transcripts. And what those full transcripts can be is it's not only about having it as part of the video and being able to do closed captioning, but it's also about having that transcript, which search can crawl and help you find videos too that could be relevant based off of all the information that's going there. But that is through Microsoft Stream, so you would have to have a Microsoft Stream subscription, and you'll have to set up transcription services, even though there is a little rumor this may end up happening universally eventually and not require Stream. Some of the other things that we have right now that are kind of launching or have launched, being able to look at search trends in that, so that's something kind of significant. So not only just being able to look at search statistics, but actually trending, like what are the popular things that people are searching, what type of searches are they doing, and that kind of stuff. Being able to do what's called Smart Find in Office Online apps. This is where you could actually smart find things and insert them into documents or spreadsheets and that kind of stuff. If anybody's ever seen the demo of like you searching through PowerPoint and actually finding a PowerPoint slide and literally bringing it right in from search from there. People search, some of the things that you'll be able to do in looking for people inside your organization, including I just realized it's a smaller font, sorry, but they just are rolling out a new one called Org Explorer, which will be more like a org chart and that, where you can kind of explore organically through your organization and how people are interconnected inside your systems. And then natural language file search in Outlook. This one right here, I can't tell you if you're like, well, can't we already do that? No, this is actually talking about Outlook actually crawling all the files, attachments on your emails and that, and you actually being able to search inside those documents as well across your entire Outlook system. So there's some very serious power to that. And then the other thing that I want to mention right now is if none of this really floats your boat right yet, and you're like, it still doesn't do enough, you do have the ability to build your own stuff using Microsoft Graph and the SharePoint framework. Otherwise, you can use the PMP SharePoint web parts and do it that way. And from there, you have a lot of power using that and being able to build out kind of a much more customizable search experience. Because right now with Microsoft Search, you can't do a lot of customizable thing. And you can use Microsoft Search as a back end of it now with the latest version of the PMP web parts, search web parts. And so there is an option for you to do that too. So you might see my little tongue-in-cheek tomorrow or the next day. You know, the reason I don't put these in as features that are there is because even some of the ones that are rolling out, is some of them aren't rolling out very fast, some of them haven't rolled. Anybody who's ever experienced a 365 roadmap knows that it goes on and on and on and on, and we're always waiting for things. So some of the things that are coming, and I want to bring these up. First is semantic search. So semantic search is really something that is going to be very powerful inside of your organization. And you can see the demo, the example of here from Microsoft, where you're searching on Megan, but now you can search on Megan in marketing and have that contextual understanding, because Megan is in the marketing department and who that Megan might be. The other part of that is going to be really being able to actually segment searches, so or sub-segment searches, so you can have Megan in marketing and then add another keyword, and it really does think of it as a separate keyword. So now you could search on some type of classification, like you could say search on legal documents, and then inside that you could search on human resources, and it would search inside of legal documents and find only human resource related legal documents. So there's a lot of things that are happening out of there. So some of the things you can do around this, one is kind of building out your topic center with syntax if you're going to use that, and also extracting some of that data through the document extraction that Syntax or Viva brings to the table from there. You're going to be able to do a lot better searches down the road. You're going to be able to do things where you'll get more fuzzy matching, and if people aren't really sure what fuzzy matching is, that's where, like, you know, you see the name Pradeep here. You know, you could still find Pradeep by PRA asterisk or something like that, kind of really being able to shorten it up and still get contextual things. Anybody knows in classic search, 99% of the time, if you typed in just PRA, you would have gotten nothing. So that was kind of significant. Being able to do nicknames and spellings and really having context around people's activities and that kind of stuff. And then you're also going to be able to do search by people's skills and experience. And that is really where this org explorer that I mentioned before is really coming into play too. Microsoft's really taking a push there. Part of their push in knowledge management is to push down the knowledge side of it, the content side of it, and part of it is to do around the people side. For one of my large enterprise customers, I did a really long, about 6-month research project for them, looking at how they could better not lose talent in their organization. Otherwise, when people were starting a project or doing something like that, they really wanted to, they felt like they were not getting to the right people because they didn't even know the right people to find. And some of those people sometimes were in a building, you know, 4 rows over in a cubicle. These people didn't even know one another existed. So, and looking at that, we were looking at ways that you could better pull out that knowledge, and especially the knowledge keepers, the people that are experts in topics. And a lot of that is going to be wrapped now into Microsoft Search, and this whole concept of people being able to really kind of understand what other people know and hopefully better connect them as well. And so part of that is, and I'll show you a good example of that, is getting people in to buy into admitting that they know something about something. And in some organizations that may be very easy, but I happen to know in a lot of organizations that's not very easy at all, because people don't want to be contacted about things sometimes, or just don't want to admit that they know more than they do. But that's going to bring a power that if I'm searching on a particular topic or a project or something like that, I could find related people and information that could help me out. So another part of that kind of goes to, and I kind of already said this, and sorry, I kind of talked about this in an earlier slide, but this is where we were talking about, like, here we're searching Lydia Holloway, and then we're actually doing a sub search on that on laws. So now you're searching inside her profile for anything she's done in any content she's written or is owner of that's in relation to laws. in there. So part of that is really being able to, once found, be able to actually narrow the context down. One of the most irritating things about SharePoint search was that once you did a search, if you did another search, you had no real way to search inside those results. You always had to narrow the search down more yourself, or you did another search and it started over. So being able to actually search inside the context of a search you already did can actually help people learn and understand and be able to find things better. And so a lot of that's going to be, you know, how clean your information is, and how easy that is for Microsoft Search to kind of understand that stuff from there. Some of the other things that are going to kind of come, especially from the AI side, is going to be some of the things coming to Outlook. Outlook is still today one of the biggest pieces that we have from the standpoint of where people really still collaborate, no matter how much we've tried to push out of it in there. So being able to do better searches, you already can do that for the most part in Outlook now. There's a lot of improvements coming to it. I've seen some things in the beta on Outlook on mobile. It's been there for a long time, and it's so very powerful to be able to see everything. I use my Outlook interface to search things a lot more than I ever used, including my Teams and my SharePoint and everything, just because it's very comfortable and it's one utility that's always open on my desktop from that side. And one of the things that they actually have coming, or they're getting ready to roll out, is real-time flight updates. So if you happen to book a flight to go somewhere, maybe not the most appropriate thing to launch during the pandemic, but hopefully we'll all be getting back to that. You'll actually be able to get real-time updates inside your Outlook client that Search will run that'll actually do that in there. So Anthony asked the question, is there an update that you know of that includes improved search experience within Teams? I will get there, Anthony. Office apps, again, it's going to be coming to Office apps. Probably the most significant part there is the reuse of content. And that's where I gave the example of being able to actually insert a PowerPoint or maybe a spreadsheet or something into a document, but actually do things inside there. So it's not only going to provide your recommendations from web, it's going to provide your recommendations within your organization. It can provide you with things that contradict what you're saying in a document, and it could provide you things that you could find in other documents and insert into your document. So it's going to be much more interactive in the way that you kind of do that. The other thing that I think is going to be really cool is as you start to roll out these acronyms and bookmarks and that, it's actually going to highlight them. So if you open up a document that uses that acronym is going to be automatically underlined, and you'll be able to roll over it and actually get a pop-up box of that acronym and actually understand what it is there. And again, you think of that, especially from an employee onboarding standpoint, how powerful that's going to be, because how many times do we kind of throw those people to the wolves and just say, go out there, figure it out on your own, do it your own way, and see what happens. And so being able to provide those type of resources is very good. From Teams, and they're actually now starting to roll this out, which is really exciting. It's still not where I hoped it would be, but it's getting there. They have recently in Teams, depending on where you are in tenant rollout. So I can tell you this just happened in my tenant about 2 weeks ago, and I'm definitely on the cutting edge side of rollouts in that, where it's actually bringing the Microsoft Search experience into Teams. And it is slowly bringing it in where you'll be able to look at those things much more like the search results you get in SharePoint and in Outlook and everything else like that. And you'll be able to do filtering, because right now anybody that is not getting some of those new features know that the search in Teams absolutely is brutal and doesn't find anything for anybody anytime out there. So Anthony, it is coming. And if you don't see it yet, you should start seeing it here relatively soon, depending on where you work. Some other things that are coming that I think are very significant. There's going to be some image search from that side, and I already mentioned the actionable search results and talking about that. Searches through conversations. So again, right now there is search through conversations inside of Teams, but that's actually going to start getting surfaced inside the other platforms, so that you could start finding team conversations in your Outlook client, or in a Word document, whatever it might be like that. One that I think is going to be very interesting to see is Microsoft Search using AI to find related work. So otherwise, when you're working on something, it could actually suggest to you other related work that may be related to this topic that you should review, which could be a very interesting thing. I'm very curious to see how well that works, because, you know, especially myself being in a consultancy, but I also think a lot of individuals in a lot of organizations, you tend to do the same thing over and over and over and have very similar themes on the activities that you do. So when I say I want to see how powerful this is, if I said like a statement of work, I mean, you know, in 23 plus years, we've written more than a few statement of work. So if I start working on a statement of work and all of a sudden it's suggesting me every statement of work I ever wrote, that's probably not that helpful. But if I'm working on a statement of work for an Office 365 migration, and it provides me ones that are just Office 365 migration SOWs that are related, that can be useful. If I happen to be just migrating a team site, and it all of a sudden gives it down to me just to that team site level, ones that are similar, that could be very, very helpful. So it's going to be kind of interesting how well some of that AI works from the standpoint of, will it give me too much information, or will it really give me the right kind of information that I need from that? And then I did mention about attachment search as well, and some of the things there. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and step away from that, and I want to walk through a few things and kind of talk about this. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, I think too many times people really think of it as there's this mysterious neural net out there that is doing all this stuff behind the scenes and figuring it all out, and doing that. The reality is a majority of artificial intelligence is human driven. Otherwise, people are actually doing something and creating something, and then the search engine or whatever it might be is just smart enough to say, okay, this rule has been met, so now I'm going to show that. You might say, well, that's not really artificial intelligence. Well, it is, in the sense that probably the earliest part of artificial intelligence really is a lot of rules engine based activities. So when we start going into things that we can create, from like acronyms to bookmarks to locations to question and answers and that kind of stuff, these are all things that we're creating. Now, they will actually suggest them to you. That's a bad one. Let me see. I should have some suggested bookmarks here, I think. So if I look at in there and I can filter here real quick, you can see they can actually suggest it to you. Right now, pretty much the suggestions for most of these are built into the search, so otherwise everybody's going to see these exact same suggestions that I do. But eventually the plan is that it'll actually start suggesting you potential acronyms or potential bookmarks, potential Q&As based off of the content that it sees, and do that. But still, even in this most basic format, you know, it gives me the opportunity to say, okay, when somebody searches on a particular type of activity or something, particular keywords, phrases, whatever it might be, I want you to say, okay, here, this matches this rule, and I want to push this out. And that might not seem very AI-y to you, but actually, because just of solely all the configurations you can do around it on how people can actually do these things, you can see here that when you actually go to, when you go to edit one, that's a bad example. The acronym is, again, let me go to bookmarks here and do this one, because this one actually is back here. Let it do that. So you look at like Trunk Monkey here, and you can see all the different types of configuration. So not only can I put together what kind of my bookmark is. By the way, if you've never seen the Trunk Monkey videos, I highly recommend them. If you just look at Trunk Monkey videos, you know, obviously I own a company named Hi Monkey, so we probably laugh about monkeys a lot, but Trunk Monkey was done by a Chevy dealership in Denver, and they are hilarious. Especially if you're a parent, there's one that you'll really, really laugh at on there, I promise you. You can put in keywords that trigger this. You can do reserved keywords. Otherwise, A reserved keyword basically means that if somebody searches this keyword, it can only be tied to this bookmark, and you could never tie it to another bookmark. That can be useful, you know, from the standpoint of if you have a lot of people doing these, people will probably try to claim them. It also could cause a problem that if people start claiming really simple words like form, you could have a lot of problems from that. You can categorize these into so that you can kind of have better categorization of your bookmarks. That's when you get into the thousands. But you can see all the things you can do it. You can have it run by a particular date. You can have it target specific countries and regions that it goes in there. You can do specific groups inside your organization. You can target specific devices. So you could literally have one run on a PC versus a mobile and show up. And you might say, well, why would I do that? The best example I can come up with is if, like, especially if you had like an interactive form, you had a form for desktop versus a form for mobile that you wanted people to pull up. You can add variations so that you could do combinations of these and basically group them together. So you could target everybody in Europe on their iOS device that is part of this group. And send something to them. And then, you know, I did mention that you could actually, you know, have it link off to a Power App and that. But basically, there's so many things you can do here. You can kind of see how you could really start to customize this and make it a very interesting experience in that. So you have a lot of things that you can do from kind of a customization side that, yes, is your activity, but overall you're giving basically Microsoft Search the rules to know that this kind of stuff and what to pull out there. So you can see as I kind of start going in there and I actually start performing, you know, searches. Now I can search on like Afe, which is I can't remember which language that is for that, but you can see that I have Trunk Monkey, and then I also have another one here that is another bookmark that I have here called Monkey of Other Languages, that it's smart enough that it started to say, well, this is also another related one. Since I typed the word monkey in another language, it is actually smart enough to know to suggest that is something. So these are where you start seeing even more of the AI side of things coming into here from that side. And then, of course, you know, a big part of that, and though I don't have anything successfully deployed because it's ridiculously hard to do it and it just hasn't been worth it, you can do floor plans where you actually bring in actual floor plans and you could actually tie them to users inside your environment and actually have people use search to find people in the actual cubicle or office or building or whatever that those people are actually in from that side. And like I said, you can see here that I'm 738% of my quota. That is because when I actually did this, oh, look at that, 365 slowing down for me. Perfect timing. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. There you go. You can see it there now. This was in beta when I did this. So since it was in beta, I could crawl more than that. And then when it came out of beta, it left the items in there. It just won't let me do any more crawls and that kind of stuff. But these are the data sources that you add in there. Adding a data source is actually relatively simple. You got to have information. You've got to select the data source that you're doing and walk through. But you can see that you have to have quotas on the connectors themselves. You can do customizations of search results. They're relatively limited right now to you can only customize external content that you bring in through connectors, but eventually you're going to be able to customize the content that you actually do inside here. So now an example of that is like, let's say that I type in, let's type in Jim here, 91911. And I'm going to go ahead and search here, and you can see over here that I actually created my own, not very pretty, but my own template inside it. So if anybody's been experienced that in classic SharePoint search, where you can create your own display templates inside there, you can very much kind of do the same thing here. And you can see that like I have a different one that has a different type in here. So you're able to create those kind of things from there. The same as when I started talking about verticals, you can see that you have all the ones that you probably expect that you've seen in a classic search center. So you have all files, sites, people, news, images, and then one of the more interesting ones, and I'm still looking for that right customer that really shows me a real good use case of being able to search through Power BI reports. I'm sure they're there in that, but from there. Real quickly, oh, hi Greg. He asked, is there any tie-in with compliance search? I'm thinking about connectors and file share content. So Microsoft just announced at the Build conference that they are bringing search into the e-discovery process, Microsoft Search into the e-discovery process, which includes external content from connectors. So that is something that they just announced. So could never tell you how fast that will come out, but that is going to be something a part of it. If you look, if you go to the Build blog, you can see a write-up on that from there that was just recently announced. So actually a great question that it'll be part of the e-discovery process, which I'm not sure how much it'll tie into the rest of what we think of from Compliance Center, but I'd say that's at least a good start from that side. From there. And sorry, you don't really need to look at that part there. So you have a lot of pieces here that you can do on side of here from there, but probably one of the biggest things, if you really kind of want to understand a little bit more about the AI side of it, I actually have to go to SharePoint syntax and what happens there. And so you see that I actually have a topic center that goes in there. So if you're not familiar, if you haven't attended a session or really haven't learned about SharePoint syntax and Viva topics, so they're really the same thing, parts of the same thing, is you have what are called topical cards, otherwise topical cards that come out. Let me give you a good example of one. Let me go ahead and type in hi monkey, and let me go ahead and go over here to all. And oh no, sorry. Let me type in. I gotta look at which ones I got here. Oh, those are my confirmed ones. Oh, I thought I had that one there. Let me type in, let me type in Office, Microsoft Search. Microsoft Search. So you can see this topical card here that, oh, that's still, why is that not working now? Office. Okay, I'm not sure why all of a sudden I'm not getting my results here. Let me try one more. Okay, I hate to do this because I don't really like it, but I wanted to show you this as an example. But this is a topical card. You can see that actually coming into a topical card piece. If I hit see more, it actually goes to my topic center, and you can see with this particular topic right here, like who in my organization are suggested people that are related to it. Here's files and stuff from different things, related sites that have had to do with that topic and that kind of stuff. And so topics are actually something that is discovered by SharePoint or by SharePoint syntax, and kind of the whole knowledge network piece that goes out there and it actually discovers it. So some of them are really funny. I'm not sure if you saw here earlier, and I don't know if you'll see it now. There was East in Iowa Airport on there. I've never done a project for East Iowa Airport. I flew into there one time and somehow that got brought up, but you can see here like PowerPoint is one that is being suggested as a topic inside my organization. But overall what it does is it tries to discover this stuff and really kind of figure out what it is. And then there's really two pieces of this. Piece one is kind of the front end user interface. Otherwise, myself as an individual, I can say, okay, I do have experience with event receiver, so I'm going to go ahead and say yes, that I'm a big part of that from that side. But on the other side, I may, you know, as an administrator, actually go through here and do these topics and actually kind of figure them out. So you can see like here where, you know, that kind of stuff there. So here's a good example of one where now from a search perspective, now it knows I'm an administrator, so it's actually asking me predictively, do I like the description that was done? So it actually found this description from Wikipedia. So for more common topics like that, it's actually going to find them out there in different public sources and provide you with information. And if so, I can hit yes. If I searched on a topic and it had a topic card of a topic that I was quite experienced in, it's going to pop up a similar box here saying something around, that it appears that you know a lot about this. Is that true? Can you be added to there and that kind of stuff? Well, what does this mean from the standpoint of what we're talking about? Well, it's actually really significant because as these topics get discovered and you can create your own from scratch of one, you start really understanding exactly some of the knowledge in your organization. And this is really part of that knowledge piece. Where Microsoft Search really plays a role in that, in the artificial intelligence, is the AI is actually discovering this information, it's compiling it together, it's putting it into these cards, and then it's basically making you do the work of, hey, does this look right? Yes or no in that. And so the reason that's significant is I just literally had a conversation with a search vendor about this yesterday. Is in all the years I've been working with search, and we've done some really, really cool search installations, most of our customers will never support it. And it's not because it's so complex, it's because it is always seen as a other task. It's like you can do this outside up here and do this outside of that in there. And so part of this is that AI is playing a role in this, is that it's actually making it easier, that it's saying, okay, now the system's going to try and figure this stuff out. And all you're going to need to do is tell me, well, did I get it right or did I not in that? And if you want to take it another step and do it yourself or modify the information and put more effort into it, you can. But overall, just you think of those quick wins, you could find these right away. And you see like, a lot of the ones that I confirmed right away, and a lot of ones were things that were related to the activities we do, the software we work with, all that kind of stuff right there. And you can quickly build out a list very long for your organization of kind of topics in your organization, and then let the system kind of help you build it along the way, not only by it finding information, but also it realizing that, John or Jeff or Frank or Mary or Sally or whoever like that is related to this topic, and then encouraging them to note that they're related to it. So now I can go in there and I can kind of learn more about that topic. So now if I need to understand more about SharePoint 2010, not only can I possibly find related content, but I could also find people that have contributed a lot to that and possibly contact those people and say, hey, listen, I'm doing something with SharePoint 2010. What do you know about this? And if you think about this in the context of your own organization, you can start seeing how powerful that is. Well, that's really what's getting applied throughout the entire ecosystem through Microsoft Search, is not only around these topics, but around acronyms, around bookmarks, around suggested content for inside documents and suggested conversations that you should join in Yammer and all these things like that. And that's really where AI is really going to play this really huge part going forward, especially from a search perspective, because search is going to become a much less of a search and much more of a knowledge management component inside your organization. So I did want to mention that that's kind of where I wanted to wrap up from there. This is how you link out to do your speaker evals. But I do want to open it up here for a few minutes to. Oh, sorry. I did not do that. For questions that anybody might have here, and I think I've got to pause this here and that. So if anybody has any questions, I see that Nude is on after me. What's up, buddy? Hope you're well. I'm sure Anthony will make you a presenter here pretty quick.
I am here. Yeah, wow, you did an amazing job.
Oh, thank you.